Hamas have been sent these proposals for a 40-day ceasefire. These drafted in Paris. You saw Biden overnight talking quite positively with his ice cream about how this could happen. What's happening out there? What's the thoughts on the ground, Jotam?
Well, first of all, we know that Israel, in principle, has agreed to this outline, and Israel is also preparing to send another delegation to Qatar to finalize the details. But they're still far from a deal, as we hear both Joe Biden say, but also the Israelis. And according to this deal, this new ceasefire deal, as you said, a 40-day truce, 40 hostages will be released. It will be mainly women, children, elderly, those who are in need of medicine, medic care. And then around 400 Palestinian prisoners will be released, some of whom, according to Israeli media, have actually killed Israelis. They are in jail. They've been in jail for years. And in addition to that, we also hear that Palestinian civilians will now be allowed to return to northern Gaza. Some of them have returned, despite it being very, very unsafe there. But according to this new deal, there will be an opportunity for civilians to go back to northern Gaza.
Just can you tell us, if it's possible, Jotam, the details of the deal? Do we know what the proposal is that's been put to Hamas?
So apparently this deal is the 40-day truce, and that's what Hamas is studying now. We heard a couple of days ago that they were talking about a 6-week truce. Now we're hearing something different, but these things change all the time because the messages aren't being passed directly between Israel and Hamas. They're being passed through mediators. Then they change a little bit, some of the details. But I think something that's important to also mention here is that in Israel, especially inside the government, they are not in agreement on the ceasefire yet. Actually, we hear some of the ministers, as early as yesterday, we heard the finance minister say, this deal is not a good deal. He said he would actually vote against it. Now, whether there are more like him in the government who vote against this deal, we don't know yet. But it's not as if Israel is ready to go with this unanimously. They're waiting for Hamas to come back with their answer to see if they have anything they want to change. But again, until the first hostage is released, this is all just talk, really, despite it being progress, obviously.
Jotam, it's really interesting, that point, actually, that Rosie just made. 40-day ceasefire. I think anybody across the world seeing what's happened from a humanitarian point of view wants that done. We've all been very open about our opinions about what happened at the beginning and what might happen in the end. And Netanyahu, I'm just quite surprised, if I'm completely honest, because he has been... the vitriol from him has been, this is going to be until the end. I want to exterminate this terrorist organisation. Let's not forget that. We talk about the displacement from north to south and how these million people are going to be ravaged as war to get rid of those final battalions. I'm only surprised, and you say about the finance minister, would this not be seen as a climb down for Benjamin Netanyahu and a victory for a terrorist organisation who started what they did on October the 7th? I'm not talking about further beyond that, but that was what happened. Is that not seen as a minus for Netanyahu?
It is, but also we have to remember that what Netanyahu has repeated for weeks now to become his new mantra, his slogan, the total victory, which is the eradication of Hamas and the release of all hostages. Those two things aren't compatible. So inevitably, Netanyahu has to compromise. You cannot make a deal with a terrorist organization unless you compromise. And this is why there are some in his government, especially the far-right ministers, who say we should not make a worse deal than what we did in November. We're almost done with eradicating Hamas. It cannot be that for every hostage we release, 10 criminals will be released from Israeli jail, some of whom have killed Israelis. So again, Netanyahu is really constantly trying to maneuver between huge public pressure and then pressure inside his government from the hardliners who will not, first of all, have also said that releasing the hostages are not it's not the most important thing, something that's obviously wildly unpopular among the families of the hostages.
Jotam, Hamas are going to be presented with the deal. How do you think they're going to respond?
Well, Hamas is also in a very interesting limbo, to put it mildly. They are constantly trying to put psychological pressure on Israel by throwing them a little bit of meat here and there to give some sort of a hope for the public that some of these hostages might be released, only to back down and say, well, we're only going to make a deal if Israel withdraws fully from Gaza and we remain in power. So, first of all, it is a very, very difficult situation because the communication line between the leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, and his subordinates is really almost destroyed, because Israel has destroyed most of Hamas in Gaza. So this takes a long time, and at the end of the day, Yahya Sinwar is the one who calls the shots. I don't think that we're going to see all of the hostages released. I don't think so. But if the first 40 can be released, especially women, children, and elderly and ill, that would be seen as some sort of a win for Israel. And of course, for Hamas, it would be seen as a win that Israel agrees to a 4-day truce. More aid will come in. About 500 trucks of aid should come in according to this deal. So everybody will try to spin this in their favor, to say that they got the best out of this deal.
Jotam, thank you so much indeed. I know it was a last-minute booking. You put such clarity on a situation that we will keep an eye on over the next few hours and day. Chris Parry in the next hour will talk to us from a military standpoint, but this is all about a breaking story overnight. Joe Biden saying, wasn't he, that a ceasefire could be imminent, a 40-day ceasefire. From a humanitarian point of view, that's a good thing. But it's quite interesting to listen to Jotam talk about everybody will spin it for their own good. Of
course they will. This is after days of talks in Paris, Egypt, Qatar. That deal put forward to Hamas. We'll see how it develops throughout the day and bring you the latest here on